All right, when I got the RBM Outdoor Panda, this is the large inflatable tent about 6 months ago. Friends, I had my reservations. I mean, after all, I had never owned an inflatable tent before, and frankly speaking, I always saw them as novelty. So visions of flying tents were dancing in my head, and I was thinking, man, is this thing gonna be safe? And let's face it, some of the places, if you watch enough of my videos, you know some of the places that we go to, that we camp to, we've had some serious winds. Remember Kofa, just January this year. And if I'm honest here, I was also wondering how it would hold up against the rigors of camping in these varied environments. I mean, would the rocky terrain puncture a hole in this damn thing, causing it to collapse on me like this poor kid that got eaten up by a tarp at a baseball game? Seriously though, I don't prefer ground tent, so ground tent has to be extraordinary in order for me to get excited about it. Well, spoiler alert, this thing has absolutely crushed it. So whether we've been camping in the desert, the mountains, or places in between, in fact, this is now one of my favorite tents, period. And what's funny about this is one of the big questions that I get, seeing we're talking about tents here, is which is my favorite tent. And seeing that, I put tents in two buckets. Obviously ground tents, and then we have rooftop tents. We're talking about ground tents. So my favorite, all-time favorite ground tents is you have the RBM Outdoor Up 5 badass tent. They're Pentagon. And then you have the Overlandish Base Camp 2. And with regards to the Overlandish one, don't get the first one. I don't like the first one. The Base Camp 2, they absolutely crushed the hell out of it. It's a badass tent. And now, of course, this inflatable tent that you're going to be hearing me jibber jabber here. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with kind of sharing with you some of the specs and features of this tent. And I'm going to kind of sprinkle in a few little side notes as well. And then ultimately at the end, I'm going to share with you my 2 cents, how I've used it, how I've set it up. Also, because let's face it, here in California, it's either hot as hell or it's in the winter times, it does get cold. And I know some of you that are up north and saying, you don't know cold. Well, yeah, you know what? You're right. We don't get as cold as where you're at. But in the winter times, yeah, it does get down in the mid 60s.
That's not funny.
It's funny, as I was chatting with a friend a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, you guys don't know cold. What does it get down there?" And I threw that joke, and he actually got it. But our winters, we can get, because we go up to Big Bear, and of course there'll be snow up there. So we've had weather that was -0, but most time when we go winter camping, it's anywhere between 0 and maybe 30 degrees and so forth. But anyway, so we're going to talk about how I would heat this thing as well, because they talk about this tent being a 3-season tent, and they don't claim it's a 4-season tent. But I think with the proper heating setup, yeah, it could easily be a 4-season tent. But anyways, let's dive into some of the specs. Enjoy a large interior space. The tent is nearly 10 feet wide, 13 feet long, and 7.2 feet tall at the roof peak. It's so large that it reminds me of those old school canvas safari tents. You get 129 square feet of interior space, which can sleep up to 8 people. The tent is made of canvas, so it's breathable to help maintain a more comfortable environment inside. Since it's canvas, it's rugged and durable, but it's also easy to repair if damage occurs. Just patch the rip or tear and off you go. The tent also has 2 doors and 8 windows, plus a panoramic window on the roof, each of which has mosquito netting so you can get nice airflow without worrying about bugs. Now, setup for this is pretty much as easy as it gets. The tent inflates as little as about 4 minutes with the manual pump that comes with this thing. Now, what I did is I actually picked up a aftermarket electric pump, and that takes about 3 minutes. And incidentally, it's a FlexTail Max sub pump, and it's a rechargeable 20 PSI, and it works extremely well for those days that you want to skip those arm workouts. Here is the connectors, where you fill the air. There's one right here, one right there, and the last one here. Now, I will say this, a little tip. Make sure you seal those or close those off all the way. Ask me how I know. What's funny is the first time we set this up, My brother-in-law was inside this thing. About a couple hours into the evening, he's like, hey bro, the tent's deflating. And sure enough, the whole inside of it, the center one, I didn't close it up all the way, and so the air had leaked out. So make sure you have all of them cinched down. Even if there's just a little bit of air coming out, it will deflate. Not a matter of if it might or maybe, it will. Now, they advertise this as being a 3-season tent. So it's weatherproof. It's ready to repel wind, rain, snow, sun. Now, full disclosure, I've used it in light rain, lots of shine, heat, wind, and it's been an absolute champ in every situation that I've thrown at it so far. Now, of course, we are in... Holy smokes, it's September 1st right now. So our winter months are coming, so you can bet your butt that I'm going to be using this thing for some cold weather camping coming up this winter as well. And then, as I'll share with you here momentarily, I'll share with you how I plan to heat this thing as well. Speaking of which, a stove jack is included in case you want to add a stove for some winter camping adventures. The tent includes a carry bag that makes it easy to transport the tent. The bag also fits the included pump, guy ropes, and stakes. So from a specs and features standpoint, this tent has everything you need for a comfortable camping adventure, all without having to deal with poles. I know what you're thinking. Won't this thing blow away like a porta potty in a windstorm? Now, from what I can tell you from my experience with this tent, it is absolutely rock solid. Usually includes stakes, guy lines, and tether it down to the ground, and you're pretty much good to go. Actually, I don't use the stakes that they provide, not at least for the main securing this thing down. Are these ground grabber stakes. Actually, not this specific one. These are only ones I had in my studio here. These are some new ones I'm going to be testing out. But the ones that I use are the same length, and they have these big old threads on it. So they go right into the ground because these things are absolutely insanely strong. So as you can see here, I'm actually screwing down. I bring a DeWalt drill out, and it has just a 3/8 cordless drill, and I'm drilling these or screwing these things into the ground, and it works absolutely insane. I've been in some really windy situations with some of the other tents, and these stakes are an absolute champ. Anyways, getting back on topic, as I was saying earlier, this is hands down one of my favorite tents, and I think you can see why. Not only is it huge, but it also is easy to set up. It's ultra durable, and it offers absolute superb construction. Better still, it's a multifunctional tent. And let me expound on that. It can be our primary sleeping quarters with my son, or we can sleep in my rooftop tent and offer this tent to friends and family, whoever may be out with us. Additionally, we can use this tent, which is what I'm going to share with you here. This is how we use it most of the time, as a gathering place to eat dinner, play games, tool around, and so forth. And then we jump upstairs into the rooftop tent. So we use this as a kind of a communal, if I can get that out, area. So now, earlier I spoke about with the winter months coming, how would I heat this? So it has the stovepipe in it. And while they sell a wood stove for these things, the wood stoves are nice. I think they are very pretty to look at, but for me, I'm too lazy to keep the damn thing lit. I hate waking up in the middle of the night, and so how I plan to heat this thing, as many for the last handful of years, I've been hooked on diesel heaters. Diesel heaters are fantastic. You set the thermostat to what you want, and assuming you have enough fuel inside your tank, you are good to go. Now, I use the planar distribution. I have a 2 kilowatt diesel heater in the nose of my turtleback. So I have their 4 kilowatt is the portable unit that I have. So with this size of a tent, you 100% you want the 4 kilowatt because it's a beast of a size tent in there. And so with that said, I would use the planar distribution, the 4 kilowatt diesel heater. And I believe that's going to heat it up just fantastic. And so actually I've heated up other tents that are about the same size as this from the amount of space inside of it. And it does a very good job with that. Now, cooling wise, we just got back from Arizona, and matter of fact, on the screen right now, you can see what we did here was I was out there with the EcoFlow Wave 2 testing this out, and then we were also out there with the Zero Breeze, their Mark II, testing it out with that. Now, full disclosure, the Zero Breeze, it's a smaller portable air conditioner, so it's not designed to cool off this whole area. So we're talking about 2,300 BTUs with this thing. And so while you can see that in there, it's a little bit more of a space than this thing was designed for. Now, I will say the EcoFlow, the Wave 2, that thing was an absolute rock star here. Again, that's a much larger, it's double the size from a BTU standpoint than the Zero Breeze. We're talking about 5,100 BTUs. So, but either way, both units I was using out there. Now, technically, I did cheat a little bit because we were out here at my parents' place. My parents moved their RV out of their little carport thing, and because the weather was it was triple digits out there, so either of these AC units, even working together, would probably have a hard time cooling that tent in that just massive heat. And then also with it being underneath the carport, I was protected because they have gusts of wind out there of upwards of 50 miles an hour, and well, I'm not ready to cross that line, that adventure just quite yet. So anyways, in here, so as you can see, we had interior temperatures about 93 degrees. And within a couple hours, I had it down to 65 at one point. And now I was running both AC units. I was running the Zero Breeze and also the EcoFlow at the same time. I was kind of curious how cold I can get it inside there. Now, you have to keep in mind, these walls have absolutely next to no R value to them. But I then killed the Zero Breeze and the EcoFlow, running it at about 3/4 throttle on that. Kept it in the low 70s, which was fantastic. Actually, at one point, as the sun went down, I actually had to throttle it back even further because it was getting into the 60s and my son was cold. And so anyway, from a cooling standpoint, with a big tent like this, if you're in a hot area, yeah, you're going to want to use the EcoFlow. If you're in kind of the northern states and just want to kind of break the edge of some of the high heat, the Zero Breeze Mark II will do a good job at that as well. All right, now before I close this off, let me share with you how I personally set this thing up. Now on the right-hand side that you're looking at here, this is a King Camp, one of their dual cots, and so it actually works out perfect because my X-Speed Mega Mat fits perfectly on here. It gets us about 1.5 feet off the ground, plus we can kind of tidy up the place and stick all the stuff underneath here that we don't need, like a lot of the bags that the certain things came in. Now over the left-hand side, there's a King Camp table, which as you can see over the far left-hand side, this becomes my workstation. I have a battery brick in the back, and this is where usually I just set my computer or whatever on there, and it works out really fantastic. And on the other end, so now you're looking at, this is actually where the EcoFlow AC was coming through, and over on the right hand side of the tent, and right here you can see this is where the Zero Breeze. Now the Zero Breeze is actually, you have a line that's pulling in the air, and then it's recycling it and spitting it back out as it's gone through and cooled that air even further. And of course, here is the EcoFlow outside, so you can get a sense of the size of this thing. And then last but not least, here is the Zero Breeze. And of course, the cool part with the Zero Breeze is because this thing only pulls about 230 watts running at full steam, I have this plugged into an Energy 1500 battery brick. Now I have 3 of their batteries, so there's 3,000 watts here. And I'm also powering that with 4 solar panels, or 4 other 100-watt solar panels. So there's 400 watts of solar total here. So the cool part about this is the Zero Breeze can run at full steam even during the day, and I'm creating a surplus of energy because I have more energy going into the battery than it's actually drawing, which is pretty cool stuff. So 6 months on, and I have 0 complaints about this tent. Now, this thing will be part of my overlanding adventures for years and years to come, and it actually deserves to be so. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned in future videos featuring this tent to see how it holds up. And I'm have to say, based upon the first 6 months, I have high expectations for this bad boy. Now, if you'd like to pick up one of these tents, what I will do is put a link in the description below where you can do so. And as you go scrolling down there to the description, I sure would appreciate if you would take a pit stop and smash that like button for me. Your interaction for this channel is very much appreciated, and it helps me out a lot. All right, friends, and that is it for me. So I'm going to be shutting off these cameras so you get out there, stay healthy, and find your adventure.